tackle terrorism, this global threat. Egypt and the Egyptian leader warned the whole world more than 2 years ago that we should all unite. The international community should face this global phenomena hand in hand. We are going to speak in detail about this phenomena with our dear guest live here in the studio, Mrs. Susie Al-Ghanaidi, Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Al-Ahram Al-Arabi. Thank you very much for being with us, ma'am, and have a very good morning first.
Thank you. Same for you.
Good morning, Mrs. Susie. And of course, terrorism is hitting everywhere now. It seems it's not leaving any country. So how do you see the threat of terrorism? And of course, President Sisi have called several times to join forces and fight terrorism. How do you think this can be achieved?
Well, it needs a lot of work, actually, a lot of activities to join work. But the problem is not only how to combat terrorism. The problem is how to deal with the ideas that is actually leading the youth people to go to being terrorists. Actually the environment and the atmosphere that could lead to terrorism. And this actually President Sisi have talked about. It's not just fighting terrorism with a military way or a police actions. It's how to fight also the ideas.
The thoughts and ideas.
Yes, the ideas that lead some people to go to this track. So this is very important. And I think there was a lot of conferences, new conferences actually lately tackling this point. The environment, it's not only poverty that actually leads to terrorism, because some of the people are poverty leads to terrorism. No, it's not only poverty that leads to terrorism. It's injustice, it's atmosphere, it's friends who can...
the religious message also.
Not only also religious, you'll find some people who are, for instance,
I mean
European.
Moderation in the religious message, more
this should be tackled, actually.
Religious dialogue.
Of course, this should be tackled, but you will find some European young people who actually go to fight with Daesh in Syria, for instance, and they have no idea actually about injustice, about poverty, about this, but they do this because there is actually vacuum in their personality actually that leads them to this uncertainty about some points, that they are living in a certain environment that sometimes leads to them to do this. Actually also in the Middle East, a lot of people actually maybe one way or another have been submitted to some ideas that may be fundamentalist, but the problem is how to deal with it, how to make the young people understand that this is not Islam, not only in the Middle East but all over the world, that this is a fundamentalist idea that will lead to terrorist acts. It's very important to deal with the ideas, with the environment that people are living in, and also how to deal with them in sharing information between the countries, actually
coordination among countries. This was this is to be my coming question regarding this kind of coordination, this kind of continuous consultations among different nations. And here I'm not talking only about the presidential level, but the interior ministries, the intelligence agencies, a lot of institutions. Whenever there's a kind of coordination among them, I think we can achieve a lot. But how do you see the double measures by the international community?
Actually, there were double measures, but now they are coming to understand that this cannot go on, because they are now actually being hurt by terrorist acts. Now they are listening more to what we are saying in the Middle East concerning, or in Egypt especially, concerning how to deal with terrorist acts, and its coordination is very important, and we need to share more ideas how to combat terrorism concerning what's happening. Before they were just not listening. They were only speaking about dictatorship and democracy,
human rights,
and
we're
all of
still
this.
seeing a lot of double standards when it comes
of course,
to human rights,
to NGOs especially.
NGOs.
Now they are, yes, concentrating more on NGOs.
Till when we are going to find some interventions into our internal affairs, and in specific regarding our court verdicts? I mean,
yes,
this
I
is
understand.
very much
You're
provocative.
Maybe, you are maybe referring to the UK and the European
EU.
Union. Yes, the
This is
European
only
Union and the
happening
UK
just
criticism
24 hours ago.
Yes,
and this is very provocative.
Yes, there were actually there was a statement that came out from our foreign minister criticizing of what have came out from the UK and the EU. But the point is there are certain taboos actually they are dealing with, and they are not changing their mind about it, which is that the NGOs is democracy. It's very important not to control NGOs. And when you try to speak to them that we have about 48,000 NGOs working in Egypt and we are not controlling the NGOs, but certain...
Because 48,000 are respecting the rule of law.
Yes, the point
but those
is...
who do not respect the rule of law should be abandoned, should be sidelined. And this is our right.
It needs actually more of understanding, because it's not just abandoning the rule of law. It's the point of the foreign currency and foreign money that's coming outside. We can understand before...
And this is a violation of law.
Before the 25th resolution, there were actually millions of monies that came outside to certain NGOs, to certain people, not for the aim of what their NGOs actually have started for. And of course, any government has its right to control this, because it could be manipulating inside, it could be interfering in certain situations, security situations, stability. So that's why there were law about it. The point, if you can ask in the United States, can they actually okay for any NGOs to get money from China, for instance, or get money from Taiwan, or get money from Russia? No, they will not accept this. So why they will not accept it in there? And
double standards once again.
This is, yes.
And how do you see the role of development regarding the issue or the file of terrorism? Do you think that development would help in at least not combating terrorism, but helping the people to find jobs and to be more stable economically? Can this help countries with dealing with the issue of terrorism?
Of course, 100%.
How far does this apply?
It will help. Why? Because a young man who can't find a job, who can who doesn't have hope actually in his future, then he will be angry, and his anger will cause him actually to go to certain ways of... I'm not saying that most of them do this, but maybe some percentage, because he doesn't have any hope. So they will go to this path.
He can easily be a victim of those groups, can be brainwashed and turn from being an ordinary person to a mercenary who is paid to kill, who is
he's not content with his life, he doesn't have hope, so it's very easy to go this path. But the point is, how can you raise the development situation and rates and environment in a country which is having economically a lot of economic problems like Egypt? This is another role of the countries, rich countries, who are criticizing us all the time, and they should actually make more projects, more investments to come, and encourage more investments, and maybe more tourists actually to come, so that we can have a better economy in Egypt. And this is a vicious circle, you know. You are all the time talking to them about this, and they are talking to you about certain other things. So it needs cooperation, it needs more understanding of how can we go on,
and if you permit
on our
me
way,
to
as a world actually, not as a countries.
And if I'd like to add, if I want to add to what you have kindly mentioned, to work for us to work and to change this culture of classifying the jobs we have, and above all to think out of the box.
Yeah, this is very important, how to think out of the box. This is different than what we are in actually in this situation in Egypt, because ideas leads to better environments. But if you just stick to certain ideas and you don't have any strategy concerning the future, and you are not thinking out of the box, then you will have the same solution, or the same coming out of the situation that you are having now,
which are not applicable anymore.
Yes.
But let's turn to America. As you've mentioned, America, how do you see of the draft law presented by Senator Ted Cruz to announce the Brotherhood as a terrorist organization?
I think it's a step forward from them, but I'm not sure 100% that the Congress will actually approve it. It's just an idea, but
I
it's
think this is the trend of President-elect Donald Trump. I think he's going on more on this path.
I'm not sure what Trump is going to do, because he's talking a lot, and his assistants are saying different ideas. So I'm not sure what he's going to do. For instance, some of his assistants talked about that he is going to take the first decision he's going to take to get announce that the embassy, the American embassy, will going to be in Jerusalem. And it was astonishing. And other assistants said, no, he's not going to do this. So you don't know what exactly. For sure, he is pro-Israel. For sure, he's going to back Israel. For sure, 100%.
Sure.
He started this with the Security Council resolution.
This is the American administration's policy.
Yes, this is the American administration policy, but it's different from one administration to another. It differs from one. Of course, they have the backbone of backing Israel. But how to do this, it's a different thing. So, and we have seen what Obama at last have done. In 8 years, he have done nothing in the peace process. And at the end, as most of the American administrations, they like in the last minute. So he actually made the resolution of the criticism from the Security Council to the settlement policy pass. So this is different than most of the American actually administration have done before.
I would like to go back to the importance of reforming religious discourse in fighting terrorism. How do you see this is achievable?
It depends on Al-Azhar, of course, and most of the actually experts in Islam, how we can do this. It needs more than just talking and willing. It needs actually a certain strategy to how to do this, because it's not easy. It needs a lot of work, actually. And the way people are educated sometimes let actually think in a certain way that they can be very easy to go to a certain way. So we need also to change the way of education, especially in Al-Azhar universities, and of course in also
I think
in
the
our
elementary stage is much more important in education, and to start from the elementary stage, changing the religious discourse and the educational system with regards to religion specifically.
Yeah, I think so, of course, because it's very important to how to teach the small kids how to look to religious, how to look to other religious, how to accept the others.
Accept the other.
Important. Sometimes it's not actually done in this way. Usually, unfortunately, especially in the poor places, you will find the idea of accepting the other not on the table, unfortunately.
Well, Mrs. Suzy Gnedi, Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Al-Ahram Al-Arabi, thank you very much for your input.
Thank you, and have a good morning, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. And dear viewers, with this we come to the end of this edition of The Breakfast Show. You were in the company of Naveen Ramzi and Nermeen Abdurrahman. Thank you very much, Nermeen.
I enjoyed my time as usual, Naveen. Tomorrow is another day with another crew. Stay tuned only on Nile TV International, always. And for more details, please log on to www.nileinternational.net. It's goodbye for now.